So good morning, everyone. This is Sonal Saxena, and we are taking lecture number 8 today. That is critical section problem in OS. So this is very crucial point and very crucial topic regarding operating system. And this topic is of greater importance if you people are preparing for some kind of net and you are preparing for gate. So critical section problem comes in each and every section. So that is why today I'm just going to tell you what is actually critical section problem and how we can resolve this critical section problem as such. So let us quickly get over it and let us understand what is this critical section problem. So friends, see, exactly if we talk about the critical section problem, um, basically this problem can occur at any moment in your operating system. So there could be this kind of possibility that what we have to do and what type of solutions are there that we need to take up. So we will be taking these type of things here. So now let us just understand what is critical section. See, critical section basically is the part of the program which tries to access shared resources, right? Now, as I told you, that operating system has got one important task of managing the resources within the processes. So at times it requires and it tries to access the shared resources. Now that resources may be any resource in a computer, like it could be the memory location, it could be the data structure, it could be CPU time, it could be any input output device. Now, the critical section cannot be executed by more than one process at a time. That is an important point. Now, operating system faces the difficulties in allowing and disallowing the processes from entering the critical section. So basically, this critical section problem is used to design a set of protocols which can ensure that the race condition among the processes will never arise. I'll tell you in the later lectures that what exactly is a race condition. Now, in order to synchronize the cooperative processes, our main task is to solve the critical section problem, and we need to provide a solution in such a way that the critical section problem doesn't occur. So this is knowing about these things. Let us just understand that exactly the critical section is any segment, any code segment, any piece of code that accesses shared variables or shared resources, and that has to be executed as an atomic action that is referred to as critical section. So this is one point. Then n processes competing to use the same shared data. So see, when when will this problem occur? When there are n number of processes and every process is trying to grab a single resource, trying to grab a shared resource that first it should run or then it should run. So in competing with this type of thing, the critical section problem can sometimes occur. Then there is no assumption made that may be about the number of CPUs, that what is the speed of CPU and at what time the CPU it is ending up one process and it is grabbing up the another process. So even this is a point. Then every process has got a code segment, just we call that critical section, and in which the shared data is accessed. Now, where does the problem occurs? The problem occurs when we need to ensure that when one process is executing in its critical section, no other process is allowed to execute in it, right? So this is the major point. This problem occurs when the process is running in its critical section and some other process is intervening in between, and it wants to have the access of CPU. So at times this is not possible. That is why, to prevent a process for interfering in between the running process, we need to have some kind of checks. This will be known as the problem or the solution for the critical section problem. Now let us understand further. Now, actually, what exactly is a critical section problem? Here we informally describe the problem that says that, as I told you, that it is a code segment, and tries to access the shared resources and shared variables which needs to be executed. Now, critical section problem basically it refers to the problem of how to ensure that only one process runs at a time and no other process should be given CPU time. So this is one major task, that how would you, how when you stop, how could you, prevent one other process to come inside the critical section of the other process. This is the major problem. So the important note here is that critical sections in different threads are not necessarily the same code segment. Yes, you have to keep this in your mind, that whenever you are, running a critical section, we need to understand that in different threads, it is not necessary that they need to have the same code. There could be a different code for them. So this is a point. Then if we describe this for mutually, or sorry, this informally, if we describe this problem of critical section, how could we define it? That formally, see, there for solving this kind of a problem, we need to have a mutual exclusion. What is this? Now see, mutual exclusion is when a thread is executing in its critical section, no other thread can be executing in their critical section. So we need to keep this in mind, that once a process is allotted CPU, when it is executing in the CPU, no other process should be allowed to execute inside it. So this is called mutual exclusion. We need to exclude all other processes to run a single process inside the CPU. Then second case comes about the progress, that if no thread is executing in its critical section, let's say there is no process which is currently running in the critical section, and if there are some threads that wish to enter their critical sections, then one of these threads will get into the critical section. Now understand this, what is happening here. See, as I have told, that there could be a solution where you use the concept of mutual exclusion. So in mutual exclusion means that already a process is running in its state, and some other processes, those wish to come inside the critical section and they want to run, they cannot do so. Why? Because one is already running. So until that process finish up with the work, no other process can enter that critical section. That is one point. Now second point comes when it is about the progress part. Now we should not do such kind of thing that we are keeping the critical section completely free. We are keeping the CPU free. As I told you that CPU should be 100% utilized. It should not sit idle for a second. In fact, this will always decrease its efficiency. So that is why, to make progress in the system, we shouldn't let the critical section to sit idle. We always, should observe the critical section. We should always have a check on the critical section, that as soon as it becomes empty, as soon as it becomes, free, we should assign a task which are waiting outside to be executed. We should assign a single task to it, so that the process should not stop, and one by one all the processes will get executed. So this is what we mean by the progress scenario. Then third one is the bounded waiting. Now what exactly is bounded waiting? Now see, after a thread makes a request to enter its critical section, there is a bound on the number of times that other threads are allowed to enter their critical section before the request is granted. So what happens is, a process always makes a request before entering the critical section, right? Before execution, the process has to signal the CPU, it has to make a request to the CPU that I am ready with my resources, I am ready with my data, now I want to get executed. Now in that case, the critical section will always acknowledge them, and it will always tell them that this much time it's required to get executed. So for that particular time duration, your process has to wait. So this particular waiting is called bounded waiting, because the process wants to get executed, it has to execute, but currently due to the engagement of CPU with some other processes, it cannot execute the waiting process. That is why the particular time it is waiting, for the whole lot of duration that it is waiting for, that is considered to be its bounded waiting, right? It is bound to wait until it gets executed. So these are the three important things related to a particular problem. So mutual exclusion has to be kept in mind, then progress, and then bounded waiting. Now we'll see the dynamics of the critical section problem here. Now see, when a process executes code that manipulates shared data, we say that the process is in critical section. We have seen these dynamics already, right? Then the execution of the critical sections must be mutually exclusive. As I told you, whenever you are executing your processes inside the critical sections, they should be mutually exclusive. And I told you what mutually exclusive exactly means. See, by mutually exclusive we mean that when a particular process is running, it should not allow to enter any other process inside the CPU, right? So this should be kept in mind while doing or while executing something inside the critical section problem. Now the execution of critical sections must be mutually exclusive, and only one process is allowed to execute in critical section. Even if the multi-processing system is there, even if you have multiple processors, even then you should you should only allow only one single process inside a critical section. So each process must first request permission to enter its critical section. Now this is one important point, that a process cannot directly enter to the critical section. It should first make a request. It should first seek permission from the CPU to enter the critical section. So this request, the request will help you out in this way, that even if the critical section is already engaged, it is already executing some process, it will answer you, it will acknowledge you back that it is busy with this, and it will start bound waiting. But if it is free, then it will allow you to enter inside the critical section and it will run the process. So this is first dynamics that we have seen. Now the dynamic number 2 says that the section of code implementing this request is called entry section. Now this is a check that I told you, that a process who wants to enter the critical section, it has to go through a gate check which is called entry section. From there the request is being made to the CPU. Then the critical section might be followed by a leave or exit section. The critical section has also got, as there is an entry section, even there is an exit section also, where exit section means that once a process get executed and it is done with the execution, as soon as it will leave from the exit section, that exit section is going to signal other processes which are waiting in the queue that the critical section is now free and one process can be allowed to come inside the critical section. Now that is the reason why the critical sections have the entry section and why it has got the exit section. Because when there is entry in the entry section, then there is a signal that now the CPU has become busy with some other process and no other process will be allowed to enter inside. And once the process exit from the exit section, it signals that now the processes or the now the critical section is free. So both these processes play an important role in critical section solution, because one is meant for signaling the engagement of the CPU and one is meant to signal the free time of the critical section, that it has become free and it is it is welcoming other processes to get executed. So this is the second dynamics that we have seen. Now I just quickly tell you a short piece of code of this critical section problem. This is the general structure of the critical section process. Now, while true, as you can see, there is a loop we have made. While true, entry section, there is a critical section. It contains access to shared variables or other resources. Then there is exit section and non-critical section. A thread may terminate its execution in the section. So you can see here, until and unless a process is in the critical section, it can access all the shared resources, all the shared variables. Once it exits the section, it comes out in the non-critical section. It is in the waiting section that it comes out, right? Here you can see the remaining code which is not in the critical section, it remains in the remainder section. So the critical section problem is to design a protocol that the processes can use, their action will not depend on the order in which their execution is interleaved. So this piece of code shows all these things. Okay. Now let us understand with the help of this explanation. The one I have told you about entry, exit, remainder section. These are the things about it. That the what is entry section basically? It is kind of a process will request to enter the critical section. Then a part of code decide whether process can enter in the critical section or not on the basis of the uh, uh, status of the critical section, that whether it is free or not. Then comes the critical section. What is critical section? We have already discussed that it is kind of a code segment that accesses the shared resources and that has to be executed as an atomic action. Then we have exit section, which says locking the section can be undone, which is done in critical section. So see, there is even one more process here, that what happens when a process enter inside its critical section, the critical section gets locked up. Okay, locked up means no other process will be allowed inside. Now, as soon as the process will completes its execution and it will go from the exit section, what does it really do? It unlocks the critical section. It signals and it unlock the critical section to allow the other processes. So this is why we say that the critical section gets logged once a process gets inside it. Okay. Then there is a remainder section. What is remainder section? The remaining part of the program which is not inside the critical section, but yes, it is waiting for the critical section to give permission to execute. Now, as I told you, the correct solution for the critical section problem is mutual exclusion, the progress, and the bounded waiting. So we can check on all the three requirements in each proposed solution, even though the non-existence of each one of them is enough for an incorrect solution. So all the three should be there whenever you are designing a solution for the critical section problem. Whenever you are designing some kind of algorithm, you should keep this in mind, that all these three things, the mutual exclusion principle, the progress part, and the bounded waiting part, all these three things should always be there in your in your algorithm or in your solution. Now let us understand the mutual exclusion first. See, if process Pi is executing in its critical section, let's say there is a process and it is getting executed in the critical section, then no other process can be executed in their sections. As I told you, mutual exclusion means exclusively only one process is allowed to execute in the critical section. No other process can intervene in between. Now, whenever one process is entered in the critical section, then there is no other process which can enter, as we have already discussed this thing. And that simply means, this shows that only one process can be executed at a time. Now that means that the critical section must be mutually exclusive. So from this we can imply that critical sections must be focused, and they should be short enough. They better not get into an infinite loop in there, because as much looping it will do, and if it enters an infinite loop, what will happen? The processes that are waiting in the remainder section will have to face starvation condition. I told you in the previous lecture what is starvation. So here there is a maximum chance of starvation if in case infinite loop runs for a single process in the critical section. Then if a process somehow halts or waits in the critical section, it must not interfere with other processes, right? So somehow if due to the lack of some resources or due to some unavailability of the process, if let us say if in critical section the process is waiting for some time, or it get paused up due to interrupts generated, then it must not interfere with other processes. Once a process is paused, or if it is waiting for some input output signaling or for some shared resources, then at that time the process doesn't have to communicate or interfere with the other processes. So this one is a very important task here. Mutually exclusive means it is completely mutually exclusive, whether it is running or whether it is in halt mode due to some lack of things. Now, second, we have seen solution to CS problem, that is progress. Now, see, if no process is executing in its critical section, and there exists some processes that wish to enter this critical section, then the selection of the process that will enter the critical section next cannot be postponed indefinitely. The progress should always be made. Now, if only one process wants to enter, it should be able to. We shouldn't, do such kind of thing that the critical section is completely free, and even after then, we are not allowing any process inside the critical section. So this not should not be done. A single process, if the CS section is free, we should allow the process to enter inside and get executed. Now, if two or more wants to enter, out of them, one of them should be allowed on the basis of first come first serve or on the basis of priorities. So either way, we should allow one process to always enter inside the critical section problem. This is a single point, right? Then third solution comes is of bounded waiting. Now, what is bounded waiting? See, a bound must exist on the number of times that other processes are allowed to enter their critical sections after a process has made a request to enter its critical section. And before the request is granted, we need to assume that each process execute at a non-zero speed and no assumptions concerning relative speed of n processes. So see, every process has a bound time that for how long it should wait and for how many times it should get executed. Even this should not be the criteria that a process, let's say there is an X process, and every time whenever it is requesting to get inside the CS, always it is allowed to enter. Like, let us assume that it has already run for 4 times, and even for the fifth time it is requesting to get executed. So the CPU is allowing the process for the fifth time to enter in the critical section. However, there are some processes which are in remainder section, those who are not getting time to get executed for just for a single time also. So this biasing, this type of structure should not be there. This type of scheduling should not be there, that one process is allowed to execute multiple times and one process is not even getting a single time chance to get executed. Now, how we can do the disabling of the interrupts? Even this is one problem, because what happens is sometimes an interrupt occur while a process is running inside the critical section. So it wastes a lot of time, and the bounded time for the processes which are existing or which are waiting outside or they are in the remainder section, it becomes too much long for them. So how we can disable the interrupts? This is kind of a hardware solution. So how do we do that? See, each process disable all the interrupts just after entering in the critical section. Now understand this thing, that once a process is entering inside the critical section, what does it do? It disable all the interrupts. It doesn't allow any single interrupt to come in between its execution time. And once it is executed and it will leave through the exit section, then only it will enable all the interrupts to come inside and get executed. Now, when interrupts are turned off, the CPU could not be switched to the other process. So this, what is the result of disabling the interrupts? Once you disable the interrupts, what will happen? CPU, it has got nothing to do. It won't be able to allow any other process. So this is one thing, that once a process enters inside the CS, it should always disable its interrupts. Hence, no other process will enter the critical section, and always mutual exclusion is achieved in this case. So this is one kind of hardware solution that we can have for the critical section problem. Then lock variables. Now see, the lock variables that we are talking about here it is a software solution, and these lock variables are sometimes known as semaphores. SEMAPHORE. That is semaphore. What is this? Now in this solution, we consider a single shared lock variable which is initially 0. So here, the semaphore is usually a binary variable. It can have only two values, either 0 or 1. That is why we are calling it a binary variable. Initially, this semaphore or the lock variable has got a value 0. Now, when a process wants to enter its critical section, it first tests the lock. So one process, if it wants to enter in the critical section, it will check out that what is the value of the lock. Now, if lock is 0, the process first sets it to 1 and then enters the critical section. What does this mean? See, the lock variable's value, which is 0, it signifies that the critical section is empty. It doesn't have any process running. So once a process who wants to enter inside the critical section, it will first check the lock variable, the value of the lock variable. Now, if the value of the lock variable is 0, then the process will enter its critical section, and once it enters the critical section, what does it do? Just like disabling interrupts in the hardware solution, here it won't disable the section. What it would do is it will change the value of lock variable from 0 to 1. So 1 will always signify that your process is already busy, your critical section is already engaged, and it will not allow any other process to come inside. So see, if the lock is already 1, the process just wait until the lock variable becomes 0. So even this could be a thing that a process wants to enter the critical section, but before entering it sees that the semaphore or the lock variable is already having a value 1. So if in case the value is 1, that signals that there is another process which is running inside the critical section. So it has to wait until the lock variable comes out to be 0. So simply we can conclude that a 0 here, it means that there is no process in the critical section, and 1 means that the critical section is busy with the process inside it, and it needs mutual exclusion there. Now see, sometimes what happens is for a for finding out the solution, like there is a bounded weighting problem. In a similar manner, sometimes there could be a minor solution which says that there could be architectural neutrality. What is this? Now see, our mechanism must be architecturally natural. It means that if our solution is working fine on one architecture, then it should not run on the other ones as well. So this is important point that we can take off. Now about this locking variable mechanism that we are considering, it is the simplest synchronization mechanism. It is basically a software mechanism. As I told you, this is kind of a software solution which is implemented always in the user mode. Now this is a busy waiting solution which which can be used for more than two processes. Now see, as I told you, in this mechanism we will always have two values, 0 and 1. We can we can always use them, these values, to signal all the things, and initially it is always capped to be 0, that we have seen the things, right? Now every synchronization mechanism, whatever mechanisms that we have seen, every synchronization mechanism is judged on the basis of four conditions. What are the four conditions? We have seen mutual exclusion, we have seen progress, we have seen bounded weighting, and the fourth one is the portability, right? Now out of these four parameters, the mutual exclusion and the progress must be provided by any solution. So these are the two things: mutual exclusion and this progress. Why? Because see, I have told you already that critical section is able to run only a single process. So in any case, in whatever kind of algorithm you are designing, in whatever solution you are designing, this is a mandatory part that mutual exclusion should always be there. And secondly, if you talk about the progress part, so obviously once a process gets out of the critical section, it is always required that critical section should grab another process which is waiting outside to run. It should not sit idle. So these are the two important points that should always be met by each and every algorithm for the solution part. Okay. So here we reach to the conclusion part of our today's lecture about the critical section problem in OS. So conclusion can be drawn that while by disabling the interrupts, it is sometimes a useful technique within the kernel of an operating system, but it is not appropriate as a general mutual exclusion mechanism for user process. Okay, why the what is the reason behind this? The reason is that it is unwise to give user process the power to turn off the interrupts. So the user processes should not be able to turn off the interrupts, because interrupts are sometimes important and they are crucial ones, and they need to be served at time. So this is what exactly is a crucial. This is what exactly we have done with the problem. So I think in today's lecture we have met out with our objectives. Let me tell you what were our objectives in this case. They were to understand the critical section problem. So you have understood what is a critical section problem. It is just a part. It is just a code segment for every process which has to go through it, where the execution occurs. And for that, the solutions we have taken is the important point that we have seen is the mutual exclusion part, because every critical section has to work upon the mutual exclusion. It should always be mutually exclusive every time. And for achieving this mutual exclusion, and for successfully executing the critical section problem, we need to derive some of the solutions. So we have seen all these things: the critical section problem, the mutual exclusion, and the solution of it. So I hope this lecture was clear to you. Now I'm just taking you up for the MCQ part. Quickly go through the MCQs. 10 questions will be there, and I hope whatever learnings we have done today, whatever knowledge we have got today, on the basis of that, you all will be able to answer the MCQs. So let me just quickly share with you. So now I'm sharing with all of you the multiple questions. So just go through it. Multiple questionnaires will be shown to you. Just go through it. Whatever we have done today, you will be able to answer all these questions. So here we have some questions related to the critical section problem. The first question says concurrent access to the shared data may result in. So let us assume that you are not following the rules of the critical section problem, where you are allowing multiple process to run inside and multiple process to share the data. Then what will happen? Will there be data consistency? Will there be data insecurity? Will there be data inconsistency, or nothing will happen at all? So I think you would be able to easily answer this question that we have done in the lecture today. Now, see the second question. It says that mutual exclusion implies that. What does mutual exclusion implies? That if a process is executing in its critical section, then no other process must be executed in their critical sections. Whether this is the correct answer, or if a process is executing in critical section, then other processes must be executing in their critical sections. So let us just think about it. Then the third question says, if a process is executing in its critical section, then all the resources of the system must be blocked until it finishes its execution, or nothing at all. So you need to think upon, this is a very, close competencies with each other. There's a close competition with all these answers. What do you think? What exactly is mutual exclusion? So just think of it and select the answer out of the given four. Let's see. Question number three. Now, bounded waiting implies that there exists a bound on the number of times a process is allowed to enter its critical section. Right. Now, after a process has made a request to enter its critical section and before the request is granted. So, is this a correct answer? Or when another process is in critical section, then only we should allow bounded waiting? Or it should be like before a process has made a request to enter its critical section, then we allow. So, according to you, whichever is the correct answer, you can opt for that. Then we have question number four. A segment of code in which the process may change common variables, update tables, write files into. It is known as what? Is it a program? Is it a critical section? Or if we call it a non-critical section, or is it a synchronizing problem? So let us just think of it quickly and answer it out. Now let us just see what is question number fifth. A minimum of dash variables are required to be shared between processes to solve the critical section problem. So, how many variables are required to be shared between processes to solve the critical section problem? Just remember what we have done in the solution part, in which we were answering and in which we were talking about discussing about the solutions of the critical section problem. I have told you about the locking variables. So how many variables are required to solve this critical section problem? So just go through the software solution and try to answer this question. Let me take you to the second set of questions. Here we have question number six with us. Now, which of the following conditions must be satisfied to solve the critical section problem? Which condition should it satisfy? Should it satisfy mutual exclusion, progress, bounded waiting, or all of the mentioned above? So we have discussed this thing that we need to meet out some important conditions if we want the critical section to be problem to be solved. So what all are the conditions that needs to be meet out if you want to solve it? So these are some of the options. Just think what answer should be correct. I hope that was a very easy question. You were able to answer this. Let us think upon question number seven. A situation where several processes access and manipulate the same data concurrently, and the outcome of the execution depends on the particular order in which the access takes place. It is called. Is it called the data consistency, or is it called the race condition, or is it aging, or is it starvation? So, what do we call it? Just quickly think over it and answer the question. Now see question number 8. In the bakery algorithm, to solve the critical section problem, each process is put into a queue and picked up in the ordered manner. Each process received a number, and the one with the lowest number is served next. Then each process gets a unique number, and the one with the highest number is served next. Then each process gets a unique number, and the one with the lowest number is served next. So out of these four questions, four answers, what do you think? Which one is the best suited for the given problem? So just think about it and try to answer. I hope you were able to answer the question. Just take some more. So I hope you all were able to answer these questions correctly, because we have already seen the concepts related to this problem of critical section. And I hope today's lecture was clear to you, where we have done a very crucial issue related to operating system, that is called critical section problem, where single process is allowed to execute inside a critical section, and the critical section has to maintain a mutual exclusion with the help of various solutions, like hardware we have seen disabling interrupts, and in software case you can use semaphores, which are binary locking variables. So we have seen all these things today, how, what are the important and necessary conditions for the critical sections to execute. We have even seen this thing. So I hope in today's lecture you have, learnt about all these things in a very explained manner, and I hope you all will be able to answer all these questions correctly, right? So I'm taking your leave for now, and for tomorrow's lecture, we'll continue with the problems related to processes and some more concepts. I'm coming out with some more concepts related to the process synchronization in an operating system. So till then, keep on reading, keep on studying whatever we have done, because the processes has to meet out other other concepts also. So until you learn about the processes, until you know the functioning of a process, what all are the basic components of your process, and how they execute, how a process executes, you won't be understanding the further advanced concepts that are coming further. So I would suggest you that please go through all of them, and till then I'll take care of you. Thanks for watching.